Tinnies don't know when to give up.
I'd hate to have to break in a new Padawan.
Hi guys, Sam from Everything PSP here. Today we're taking a look at Star Wars The Clone Wars Republic Heroes for the PSP. This is part 2 of an 8-part series where I'm taking a look at all the Star Wars games for the PSP. Now I'll let the cutscenes play in some parts of this video because, to be honest, the best part of this game, at least in the experience that I've had so far with it, has actually just been watching the cutscenes unfold and then rushing through the segments in between in order to unlock the following cutscene. Now I'm not entirely sure if this game is actually canon anymore, and it's very reminiscent of the time pre-Disney where Star Wars was a lot more open to interpretation and there were varying timelines and such that you could accommodate for.
This is the last of them, General Skywalker, but they're dug in deeper than a sarlacc.
I definitely found the best part of the game was the cool cutscenes,
Tinnies don't know when to give up.
even if some of the dialogue is a little questionable.
If we can't go forward, then we'll have to go up.
Up? Up where?
Follow me, Snips. And try not to get shot. I'd hate to have to break in a new Padawan.
Better get moving, kid.
You stay put, Rex. We'll take care of those droids.
So now we actually get into the gameplay. It is rather formulaic and everything does run kind of on rails. I found that a lot of these sections were quite bare and didn't have a lot to do, and a lot of the platforming does run on rails, so there's not really anywhere else to go except for where you're supposed to. One thing that I did find worked really well with this game is the fixed camera angle. I'm not normally a fan of fixed camera angles, but I find in this title it does actually help to streamline the process and at least give you a bit of an idea of where you're actually supposed to go. I enjoy the voice acting as it's using the same voice actors from the animated series, but a lot of the mechanics do leave something to be desired in terms of their actual efficiency and the way that they're implemented into the game. The hitboxes aren't the most accurate. Looking at it as a standalone game today, it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny, but I can understand when it was released, it was a very good handheld title in the sense that it does pack a lot of content into a small space. You can see here also, based on the amount of points you earn during the game, you can unlock different perks and cheats and things like that for your character, which is a nice touch and kind of reminds me of some of the LEGO games like LEGO Star Wars. You can mount the droids and use their abilities to navigate levels, and in some areas you can't progress any further unless you've actually used their unique ability. I found the controls a little bit tricky in terms of trying to get the character to land where you wanted them to. As you can see here when I'm trying to land on the step and just kept falling. It's also quite funny seeing the AI characters pathing is not the best, and that's why they've had to develop all these spawn points within the levels, not only for you to respawn, but also for your partner to respawn as well.
Good job. Let's move.
Now we're coming up to the big spider boss battle, which in actual real time took me about 20 minutes to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. This isn't for lack of trying, as I used all of the techniques I had available, I just didn't realize that the different colored rings meant different things. So it actually took me about 17 minutes to get this done, but I'll fast forward it so you don't have to sit through that painful experience. I actually ended up having to pause and look online to double check what I was supposed to do, and the solution did seem a bit silly, given that once I had finally landed on the leg of the spider, then Yoda came in and told me what to do.
20 minutes later.
Now you can see the margin for error is very narrow for a game that's sort of quite hard to see in a handheld context.
Must be destroyed.
One down, two to go.
You shouldn't have to be this precise with the landings.
Try to land on its big fat head next time.
Once I figured out the technique to actually destroy the gun turrets on the droid, it didn't take much time at all, and then we were rewarded with another cutscene. I've had to cut a lot of content out of this video for time reasons, but when you play it for yourself, you'll notice that there are a lot of cutscenes involved here, and it's almost like watching a full movie or a short episode of the Clone Wars series.
Padawan got carried away.
What the
I really enjoyed the interactions between Ahsoka and Anakin, and I think their characterizations are very believable.
The clankers in this sector.
Okay, Rex, get your men ready to move out. There are still large pockets of resistance in the city.
We'll try to save a few for you this time.
Much.
I like how at the end of the level you get a rundown on your stats based on your performance, and the points that you've earned during the level can be used to unlock your abilities. Now coming up we have the classic announcer segment, which is often found in the animated TV series.
The Clone Wars rage on. As a sign of good faith toward the Republic, Crime Lord Jabba the Hutt agrees to share information about separatist smuggling activity in his territory with the Jedi. Rumors of war spread everywhere, and Obi-Wan Kenobi sets out for Naboo to discuss reports of enemy activity in the system with Senator Padme Amidala. Meanwhile, Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan Ahsoka Tano take charge of the operation to rid the recently liberated planet Ryloth of the remaining droid army presence.
And it has a kind of very old school 1950s serial comic kind of vibe, which I also think is quite fun.
Watch yourself, General. Our patrols have been encountering stubborn resistance.
We'll be careful, won't we, Ahsoka?
Where's the fun in that?
Kids, got a point. See you at the rendezvous, sir.
Let's go, my young Padawan.
Now some of the angles that the camera chooses, for example this panoramic tracking shot, does remind me a lot of some old school adventure games, which kind of makes the game feel a lot more substantial than it really is. When you strip away the visuals, it really is just about hacking and slashing through different rooms, using the abilities of the droids available, and then getting through to the next room in order to do the same thing. It's very rinse and repeat, but I find breaking it up with all the cutscenes does help you to enjoy the experience. A lot of the controls are very simple and aimed at a younger audience, but they're still serviceable and do make for a good experience. Any stuttering that you notice in this video is purely an artifact of my emulation and screen recording software, which I am working on improving in future videos, but for the time being, just be aware that on PSP hardware, the game runs perfectly fine. Again, another shot that makes me feel like I'm playing an adventure game. And here you can see us using the ability of this droid to clear our entrance into the next room. Just as the scene loads in, there's about 1 or 2 frames of T-posing, which I thought was quite a funny quirk. And these segments where you get to play as the clone troopers are actually quite fun. Some aspects of this game do remind me of the original Phantom Menace title for the PS1 in terms of its awkward isometric fixed camera perspective and its limited control scheme. This is largely a limitation based on the processing power of the PSP and the limited control schemes available. But I think all things considered, this game was actually a lot more enjoyable than I gave it credit for before I started this video. The variation in locations, as well as the variation in techniques you can use, really help to spread out the game, and I can only imagine if I were to play it more, I would discover more techniques and more challenges to overcome. Sadly, my emulator started to kick the bucket towards the end of the video, and I was running out of space to record, so I did have to stop. But there were a couple of funny moments, like here where Anakin gave us some stern advice, and then proceeded to crash and die into a rock.
If you say so, Master.
Overall, I would say the strongest point of this game was definitely the storyline, and it was let down by the limitations of the graphics and the janky gameplay. But I don't think I can get past the rinse and repeat formula, and the game's not really targeted to someone like myself, so I don't think I'll be playing any more of this in future. Anyway, that's about it from me today. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to stay notified of future releases. I've been your host Sam, and I'll see you next time on Everything PSP.